Good afternoon. It's Valerie from VL Buyers Agents, and I'm here for another episode on my channel to give you some top tips, help you with some lessons learned, and telling you some interesting stories to make sure that you do not make any costly mistakes buying a property in Catalonia. So today's episode is going to focus on mortgages. So we started off with the first thing in step one of my buy safe process was to know where you wanted to buy, what was important to you, how you were going to choose the property, etc. So the next step after that is the finance. So if you are a cash buyer, there's no issue. I mean, you have all the money. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that you do need an extra 13 or 14% above the price of the property to close. Okay. If you need a mortgage, the scenario is slightly different. What we normally ask people to do is to get a pre-approval for a mortgage, because when you are a buyer, you are seen in a better light if you already have a pre-approval on the mortgage because of the process, the length of time. And there is a clause in Catalonia called the mortgage clause. So once you pay your 10% on the ARAS contract, we highly suggest that you put the mortgage clause in. So the mortgage clause states that if you are not granted the mortgage by the bank, then the seller needs to return your 10% deposit that you've put down upon signing the contrato de arras. This is another big reason why sellers are looking for either cash buyers or people that are pre-approved. So how do you get a mortgage in Spain? So there are two ways to get them. You either go direct with the bank or you can work with a broker. You could do one or the other. The advantage of a broker is that they have access to a range of products on the market, of financial products, and they are used to working with different people and different backgrounds and circumstances, which help them decide which product will be more suitable for you. So depending on your situation, do you have a steady work contract? Are you self-employed? Do you have a company? All those things affect the type of bank or financial institution they will consider the most appropriate for you. The other advantage of using a broker is they know how to present your case to the bank. So I'll tell you a quick story about that. I have a client who last year was unable to get a mortgage through anybody. Everyone I recommended said unmortgageable, except one guy. So this mortgage advisor went the extra mile. He's also an accountant and very experienced and knew what the bank was looking for. He had also worked in the bank before and knew what their conditions were and maybe a way around the system. So he was able to get a letter from this lady's pension provider, which is really what he needed to get the mortgage through. So the bank was saying she could cash out that pension and then stop paying us. And so he went the extra mile to contact the pension provider, ask them if that was a possibility with the pension she had. They confirmed that it wasn't. So what he then said is, can you give us a letter confirming that there's no way she can ever cash out that money, that she will be receiving this amount of money until she dies? So using that letter, he was able to get the mortgage through because he was able to prove that she will have a consistent income throughout the term of the mortgage. So this is, these are things that mortgage advisors may know, but that we don't know as individuals. And really, when they are specialists in their fields, they know how to present and maybe a way to get around whatever is stopping you from getting the mortgage. So that was just, quick illustration of how things can change from you thinking I can't afford or I can't buy my property to, wow, I can have my dream home. That's also another reason why I promote brokers, maybe a little over banks. I've helped people with both. And I can say that working with a broker is much easier because the broker handles most of the headaches that come from the bank. The banks are very, very strict in Spain, and it's something that, you need to keep in mind. I know a lot of people compare it to their home country, and maybe things are easier in your home country. But in this country, banks are quite strict on their lending criteria. As a non-resident, the conditions would be that you're going to get a 60 to 70% loan to value. You won't get more than that. You may get less than that if you come from a country where it's maybe not as strong financially as, let's say, the US, the UK, etc. So that might affect the loan to value they're willing to give you. Okay, the term is never more than 25 years. So it's a 20 to 25-year term and maximum of 75 years old. So if you apply for a mortgage when you're 55, the absolute maximum you're going to get to pay back is 20 years, and it's more likely going to be 15. Right. One very, very important part is the debt ratio on your net income. This should never exceed 30 to 40%. And this takes everything into account. If you have a mortgage in your home country, if you've bought a car on a lease and you're paying it off monthly, I don't know, buying furniture and paying it off monthly. What else can you have? Any debt, credit cards are a big one. I had a client who had an outstanding amount of, I think, just over 500 euros on her credit card. And until that was cleared, we weren't moving any further forward with the mortgage. So the debt ratio is very important in this country. Then the other condition is that your interest rates as a non-resident will be slightly higher. Currently, so these fluctuate. So currently it'll be probably between 2.8 and 5% maximum. The way to bring these down, here's a top tip, way to bring down the interest rates that the banks give you is maybe to buy insurance bundles or whatever financial incentives they have. So, you get an alarm for the house, you get contents insurance, maybe you get your pension going into their bank account. For each of those little products, you get, on CaixaBank or La Bank, with a client I was helping, they got 0.25 off every product that they took. So in total was 0.75, and it brought their interest rate down to 2.5. So this was on a non-resident mortgage. So those are things to take into consideration. And the last tip I can give you on mortgages is to make sure once you pay your 10% on your ARAS, that your lawyer or your agent or whoever is accompanying you throughout the process puts in the mortgage clause on your contrato de ARAS. Because if it's not in there, you may lose your 10% deposit. So the mortgage clause in Catalunya states that if you do not get your mortgage, the seller is obliged to return your 10% deposit that you paid upon signing the contrato de arras. The other thing is, I said 60 to 70 loan to value. I've just remembered this. It could be less depending on the condition of the property. Another situation is if the appraisal, so this never happened to me, but the loan to value is given on either the purchase price or the appraisal value. So once you've submitted the property to the bank will then send a surveyor out to do an appraisal on the property. So if you're paying 200,000 for the property, but the appraisal came through at 180,000, well, you're going to get a loan to value of 60 or 70% on the appraisal rate, whichever is the lower rate. So, it can happen the other way around as well. Let's say 500,000 and you're paying 480,000 for it, then the loan to value will be on the lower amount. So those are all little tips I can give you about mortgages. I hope that's been helpful. If you've liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and follow me for more advice